Hello, everyone. It is a pleasure to have you all here. That was a wonderful panel, and I'm very excited that we get the chance to talk to each other about what we just witnessed. So, before we get started with that, it is imperative that we do our introduction. I will go ahead and begin. My name is Keisha Bentley. I am the moderator for this reaction room. And just a little bit about me, I am an educator of 14 years. I'm actually going into my 14th year as a public school educator. I am certified in the states of South Carolina and New York. I've been a teacher evaluator. My background is in biology. So I am very excited to hear from the rest of you. If we would, can Barbara start us off?
Sure. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I appreciate you guys choosing our room. My name is Barbara Gooch. I attend Ball State Community College in Middle Tennessee. I'm very excited to be here. My plans for the future are to graduate and do something in higher education, whether it's with a nonprofit organization or working at a college. Nice to meet you guys.
And Vickiana?
Hi, everyone. My name is Vickiana Suprana, and I am a marketing and business major at Valencia College. And I plan on combining my writing talent with my passion for entrepreneurship and public good. So writing, but also having a hand in education and making the lives of students better.
And Matt.
Hi, my name is Matt Sai. I had just finished my third year, going into my fourth and hopefully final year at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I'm currently studying liberal arts and engineering studies with a focus on usability studies and psychology. And I also just picked up a minor in business entrepreneurship, and I'm excited to be here.
That's wonderful. Thank you all. And I guess I got so caught up in the fact that what I do every day is teach, but I'm also a student at Morehouse School of Medicine, and I will be finished in about 3 or 4 weeks. So very excited about that. Working on my second master. So yay.
Congrats.
Thank you guys. So on to this discussion. I had the thoughts of assessments from not only a student perspective, but obviously as a teacher as well. And I'm very excited to see what you guys thought of it. So what was one thing from each of you that kind of stood out to you, like the paramount thing that stood out to you from what we witnessed in the panel discussion? Would anybody like to go first?
I can go first.
Thanks, Matt.
The first thing and probably the biggest thing that stuck out to me was a point from Rebecca, in that I do believe that assessments are important, and I think that they are necessary if they're done well and created well. And I think they're important to measure students' progress and pinpoint topics that they need help with. But especially in a classroom, I don't think it should be weighted as like the biggest importance of a person's grade or ability to do well in a subject. I think that there are so many other things that can measure student success in a classroom, such as projects, participation, homework, throughout the course, throughout the quarter or semester. And I think assessments are important to measure the pinpoints and students' progress, but I don't think it is the biggest thing that should measure their ability in a classroom.
Thank you. Anyone else?
The first thing for me was when Danny said learning should be meaningful, and I completely agree with that. And I would say that to go a step further, that test should be meaningful. And I found it interesting when they said that that if they fail you, they still get paid the same. So teachers, it created the narrative that like teachers don't care whether or not you pass or fail, because they're still going to collect their paycheck at the end of the day. And that's where it comes into like where it really matters whether or not the teacher is there because of the paycheck or because they want to help it goes back to meaning.
It's interesting. Barbara?
Yeah, I think the point that stuck out the most was Rebecca's point about some of the students not coming in as prepared as needed, and then they're stuck in, coming to higher ed, they're not as prepared, and yet by the time they go out, they're supposed to be ready for the adult workforce. And I think that's something we need to really remember, is that, they're in that shift of, maybe not being ready, but you're getting ready to go into adulthood. And to me, that is the purpose of higher ed, is for that adulthood preparedness. Of course, me being an older adult, I'm kind of already there, but the workforce demand, I think we need to remember that the rigor still needs to be there, but the empathy also needs to be there. And how do you balance both of that? I do like what Matt said, where maybe tests don't need to be the end all be all. But I do agree that I think assessments are. I think that reward factor, Barbara brought that point about dopamine earlier within the session. I'm that type. When I see my grades, and know that I'm doing well, or if I'm struggling and see that helps to propel me in either way, and to knowing that I am actually learning. So I do think it's important to know that we do need that rigor to prepare for that adulthood, but also maybe, switch to making sure we're teaching the skills that need to be taught.
All of your comments were spot on. And when you spoke, I thought of very specific examples of things that happen as a teacher in the classroom. I teach secondary, but thinking about students when they come to you and they don't have what they need. But then you have some teachers who pass them along, and eventually you do reach the point where that's not going to work anymore, where the rubber has to meet the road. So preparation is very important. I think one thing that really stood out to me in particular was from, I think it was Rebecca, to learn for the sake of learning. And my question for you guys would be, do you actually feel prepared for your future? Or if you're in your process of learning, do you feel like you are somewhat prepared so far?
I think there's still a lot more for me to learn, but I'm not sure if that feeling will ever really leave me, because one of the things that I like to do is I like to collect things, but specifically knowledge and books and things that can help me. So I'm not sure if I answered your question. The answer is it's a process.
That it is.
Yeah, I'll bounce off Vicki. I know I'm 40 and still learning so much, and it's neat to be an older, learner, going back and stuff into learning all that I am. I realize that I want to soak that up and learn it and stuff. But I will say this to kind of answer your question. Honestly, there's some of the things that I agree with a lot of what she said. I found what she said so refreshing. It's very different from the education mainstream media. But what I didn't care for is like the gaming and stuff like that. There's some of them I don't see that's going to fit as a student. Maybe some of it. I just want to make sure that, but what she did say about the gaming could be software. For instance, my son just got a bachelor's in accounting and stuff like that. What skills did he learn to actually apply that for a job? And I think, learning the software for accounting is possible, is better. Maybe not the gaming that she was talking about, but the software, and I've seen a lot of different, when I'm searching for the education and stuff like that, why, there's certain things that I've never heard of, the software and stuff like that. Why isn't that being applied more? What skills are we learning to go to that adulthood? And then there's some like the general ed, just give me the book, let me read it, let me take my test. I'm good. I might not remember everything, but I'm ready to shoot for my skills and what I'm going to be doing in the future. And I think that's where it's very important to have that assessment, but also have that growth and learning.
Mm-hmm. Matt, did you want to contribute to that question?
I guess for me, I most of the things that I learn and I feel like I'll be able to prepare from for life after college is this might be a hot take, but it's actually from my discussions with professors, students, and friends outside of the classroom. Um, I learned a lot of valuable skills online from friends and like going to office hours for professors. Those are a lot of the things where I get out of their lecture times where I feel I'll be able to use after college within classroom settings. I do believe I agree with Barbara in that things like GEs, um, I'm not a big fan of those just because they're for me this is another hot take, but I think those are a little bit of a waste of time. GEs are just kind of there for us to take. Literally all the GEs that I've taken in college, yeah, I learned a lot during the course, but after I took the final, in one ear, out the other. And so I think those are a waste of time. But in terms of my major and like things I'm actually passionate for, um, I believe those are like really helpful in getting me ready for life after college, especially the projects. I think projects are huge because not only are you learning from the lectures, but you're able to implement what you've learned in lectures and use it on real life projects. So I think that is valuable to me.
I think it is too. Barbara, you mentioned you're 40 years old. I'm 37. And as I was listening to the panel, there are a couple things that really stand out to me. And one of those things had to do with your thoughts on gaming. I don't know about you guys, but I grew up in a time where when it came to education, it was a very traditional. You get the information. There weren't PowerPoints. I mean, we were using floppy disk, like this was that time. And now things have shifted considerably. And as a teacher, I have to evolve as education has evolved. And now in my classroom, everything, like Matt, you said you really enjoy is project-based learning. And so things have really changed a lot. So, and everybody doesn't have to answer this question, but I am curious to know, what are your thoughts on gaming as a tool for learning and assessment, and be considerate of that non-traditional learner?
It's about time. I remember my mom always saying to my brother, like, hey, you need to get off that game. But I was like, wait, what if just maybe he's on to something? Because they say, like, in order to play a game and to beat it 300 levels, you have to have some level of intelligence. And where I got this theory from, it actually comes from those tutors that teach you how to ace your standardized tests. They tell you to think of it as a game, and every single point that you get right is another level that you unlock. And with that, my sister has a score that's a lot higher than mine. So I think that it's about time we incorporate skills that will make it more fun in the classroom for students, especially like nurturing to their inner child and realizing that, yes, they're adults, but at one point they were children too. And because they experienced that, they know what it's like to play a game and have fun.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah. I mean, I just wanted to completely agree with that because I think that for such a long time, I mean, in my experience, gaming has been seen or stereotyped as something that's kind of childish and not really useful or progressive in any way. And I think it's a really great way of using gaming and education to be able to make learning fun. And so I just think anything from stepping away from lectures and just listening without having a conversation is better to learning and more fun in general. So I can completely agree with that.
Wonderful. Thank you guys for your comments. So we've gotten a few different questions in the chat, and I looked through some of them and I want to share a couple of them with you guys. And hopefully at least one of you will answer this. So this is from Marissa Green Francescan, and she asks, what is the best assessment you have ever taken that helped you learn and was beneficial to you in some way?
For me, I think the best assessment that I've taken so far was actually during the pandemic online testing. This one test that I took, my professor made it clear that he didn't want to teach us about like specific lecture material, but real life examples and how to apply those stuff that we learn in lectures to real life procedures. And so I guess for me, what worked best in terms of assessments was using like the application of materials that we've learned in lectures and applying that to real world examples. Because not only does it teach us what something means, but also teaches us how to use it. And I think that's better for learning, at least for me, to be able to hold that long term and after college. So I think that, did that answer the question? I think so.
Yes, that's good. Does anybody else want to answer that? Take a stab at that?
Yeah, I think for me, the best test that I've ever had, it was actually a presentation. And I say presentation because presenting is actually a fear of mine. And I used to have really, really bad stage fright. And once I failed about 10 times, I finally aced it. And since then I've learned that tests shouldn't be scary. And if they are, you have to conquer your fear, because if not, it'll control you.
It's very true. Very
There was
true.
one question, but I missed that.
I'm sorry.
There was more to your question, but I missed it.
It was just the question was, what's the best assessment that you've had, which you did cover that one. And how, and was, have you ever that you've ever taken, and how did it help you learn, and in which ways was it beneficial to you? So I think you covered it. Yeah. You conquered your fears, and that's wonderful. Barbara, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I think for me, I had to think back a little bit, but it was a media writing class that I was in. And he gave us, I don't know how many sentences that we had to do, but there was in total 100 problems within it. And for each one that we got wrong, we got a point off. I think I ended up getting a 78 on it, but it was very interesting. He told us it was purposely hard. It was to make us dig within the AP manual that we had and stuff. And that was that real world application skills that I was talking about, that not only just, learning, just for the sake of learning, but learning for skills maybe later on. And I just found that very valuable. It helped my writing skills a lot. It made me pay attention to what I'm writing and what words, matter most and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed it and learned a lot, even though I got a lower grade than usual. But I would rather have a lower grade knowing that I learned something than just what I call an easy A. I want to be challenged.
Yes, yes. And I'm glad you said that too, because one of the comments that was made, or at least that was perceived, is that students always just really want easy assessments. So yeah, and maybe it's generational. I don't know. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, I'm glad you said that.
I'm gonna be honest though, it comes back to some of those courses, like Matt said, some of those courses, I feel like this was taught in high school, especially for those that are coming right out of high school. It's like, why are they doing it again? I've enjoyed the refreshing and stuff like that, but still, I'm reading it, I'm learning it, let me go on, I'm good, but that doesn't mean I don't want it to be so easy that I'm not learning anything. I do want to be held accountable, and I do want them to know that I'm actually applying myself.
Right. Great comment, guys. There's another question from the chat. Nicholas Holmberg. He asks, in your experience, students, how many of your instructors go over the exam after the fact? Further, how many of your instructors attempt to contextualize the content of an exam, both before and after the exam?
Well, for most of my classes in college, for all the midterms that we've had throughout the quarter, yeah, they would bring it up in class and just pass out the papers and ask people about one question or two, and that's really it. They would just kind of just give it out, talk it over for 2 minutes, and then start lecturing for the next section or half of the quarter for the next midterm. They barely went over it, or at least some did, but not most of them didn't. And then for the final, of course, they would give us the final, we turn it in, and we don't even hear about it. We just get a grade. So we barely get feedback for most of our tests.
And so then where's the learning?
Yeah.
Like how do you fix a problem that you're not so sure about?
Yeah, and like most professors, most professors would say, hey, like if you want to talk about it, come to my office hours. But the thing is with me, most of my office hours were during the same time as my other class times. And so how could I come in and talk to these professors when one, there are probably hundreds of students going in there. And then two, I don't even have the time to go because one, I have to study for the next class. I'm probably involved in other extracurriculars. I literally can't go because I have other professors' times to go for lectures. So it's really hard to get that feedback.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Very, very important. I want to bring out one more question that's on here, and we have about 2 minutes left, so we'll try to make it quick. One question is, what is an equitable assessment? Barbara, if you could take that one. And in the next question for Vickiana, how can an educator get students to interact? You can start, Barbara.
So I think of equitable as, kind of engaging everybody and at their level and stuff like that. But I will be honest, I feel like, what they talked about earlier, that's kind of hard. I don't, to consider everybody's circumstances and try to do a test on that, that's a lot. So I do see why an assessment would be almost, I hate to say it, but a one size fit all. So, I don't know what the answer to that is. I do think that, if a student is, having difficulties, that's where the remedials that they offer sometimes could be valuable to help them. If a student excels, to have the honors classes or the harder or something like that. But as far as a test in a classroom with everybody the same, I wouldn't know how to do that unless, of course, those assessments evolve around maybe, as Matt had talked about, the project or a presentation or something like that. Something like that that can engage your life circumstances. But as far as a multiple choice or answer this question, I just don't know I wouldn't know how to, honestly, as a teacher, to even do that correctly. So I'd love to hear your input on that, Keisha.
For me, I think it's hard to answer that question because, yeah, making an equitable test, I feel like in today's world right now might be not feasible. Mm-hmm. And if you do create an equitable test, it can be seen as subjective or seen as like not balanced or not right in terms of fairness for other students. I think the question people should be asking is, how can you make education and resources accessible to everybody and make that equal for everybody? Because I think the problem that people see with equitable tests is that not everyone is prepared for the test. But what if the problem is with how people are getting prepared or getting access to these resources? And so I think being able to equally give everyone access to the same resources, same tutors, same education might be another option, but I know that's probably not feasible right now and might be really hard. So
one final thing that I wanted to add was that I think tests should be a living embodiment of the language of being human and the human experience, but then also how teachers can engage students is with their cultural DNA by Dr. Bettina Love. Look it up. We're out of time. Back to you, Keisha.
Thank you so much for your comments. It has been wonderful, so wonderful, and I appreciate all of your participation.
Thank you, Keisha.
Thanks.